Hello everyone, in today's new video, I'm glad you've taken the time to watch my channel again, where together we delve into another case that has rocked not just Scotland, but the whole of the UK. Today we're going to talk about the tragic fate of a young girl called Paige Doherty. Paige was a 15-year-old student from Clydebank, Scotland, who had her whole life ahead of her. On the 19th of March in the year 2016, she went to work in a hairdressing salon, as she did every day. It was an ordinary Saturday, but one that tragically turned into her last day in this world. This case is particularly shocking not only because of the age of the victim, but also because of the brutality of the act, and how it all took place in a place where a young girl should be safe. Paige actually stopped at a local grocery store owned by John Leatham to buy a bagel to take to work. It was a decision that cost her her life. Surveillance footage captured Paige entering the store at 21 minutes after 8 a.m., but never showed her leaving. What happened inside that store shocked even seasoned CSIs. Leatham attacked her in his office and inflicted at least 61 stab wounds to her head and neck. In all, they found more than 250 wounds on her body. The case of Paige Doherty makes us think about how quickly an ordinary day can turn into a tragedy. It also reminds us of the importance of safety precautions and vigilance in our daily routines. Today, we'll take a look at the investigation that led to the capture of the killer and how this tragedy affected the entire community. Get ready for a story that may upset you, but one that is important to know so we can understand how fragile human life can be. When Paige Doherty woke up on the morning of March 19, 2016, there was no indication that it would be her last day. The 15-year-old girl from Clydebank, Scotland, woke up at her friend's house where she had spent the previous night. It was a common situation for her. Young people often stay overnight at friends' houses, especially at weekends. Paige had a work day ahead of her as she was moonlighting at a hairdresser's in nearby Kirkintilloch. According to her friend's testimony, Paige was in a good mood that Saturday. She showed no signs of fear, anxiety, or concern. She was getting ready for work, just like any other day. She put on her regular clothes, jeans, and a t-shirt that she took with her to her friend's house. She didn't have any special items with her, just regular personal items like her cell phone and wallet with her allowance. Paige was aware that she had to be at the hair salon on time. She was a responsible young woman who valued her job and didn't want to let her employer down. Her mother, Pamela Monroe, had raised her to be dependable and responsible, and it showed in her approach to work. For her, hairdressing was not just a way to earn pocket money, but also an opportunity to learn something new and gain valuable experience. Paige chose to walk to work, which was perfectly normal for her. The route from where she stayed overnight to the hairdresser's in Kirkintilloch was not very long, and she often walked because it was both economical and healthy. Moreover, like many young people, she liked walking and fresh air. As she set off on her journey, she decided to stop for something for breakfast. She was hungry and knew she would have a long day at work. She chose a local grocery store called Delicious Deli on Fleming Avenue in Clydebank, owned by 32-year-old John Leatham. It wasn't a random choice. The store was right on her route to work, and she had shopped there before. She knew it as a local business that offered fresh food and fast food. At exactly 21 minutes past 8 in the morning, Paige entered the store. Surveillance footage captured the moment to the minute. She looked calm and relaxed, as if she were going on a routine shopping trip. She had no idea what was about to happen or the person in front of her. The moment Paige entered the store became the last moment she was caught on the cameras outside. The store's security cameras recorded her arrival, but never recorded her departure. This detail later proved crucial to the investigation. Paige probably wanted to buy something simple, maybe a bagel, a sandwich, or some other snack for the road. It was a routine thing for her that she did often. She had no reason to be concerned or suspicious. John Leatham was a well-known merchant in the neighborhood, and his store had been in business for some time. According to later reconstructions of events, Paige had made her way to the back of the store where Leatham's office was located. The exact circumstances of how she got there remain unclear, but it's likely that Leatham invited her there under some pretext. Perhaps he told her that he had something in his office that might interest her, or that he had a better selection of merchandise there. Paige hadn't planned on contacting her family before going to work, because it wasn't unusual. She often left for work without calling home first, especially when she stayed overnight at friends' houses. Her mother, Pamela, knew her daughter had work on Saturday, but she didn't expect to hear from her until the evening. This lack of communication later proved to be a complicating factor. Had Paige texted or called home before going to work, her family might have found out more quickly that something had happened. But in the year 2016, it was not uncommon among young people not to hear from their parents for several hours, especially when they were at friends' houses or at work. Paige also had no plans to text her friends. She assumed she would contact them later in the day or in the evening after work. Her social networks remained inactive, which later proved to be a warning sign because Paige was an active social media user. When Paige did not show up at the hair salon at the expected time, her co-workers and employer initially interpreted it as something serious. Young people sometimes arrive late or forget to let people know they're late. They may have thought she was having traffic problems or was delayed at a friend's house. But as time passed and Paige still didn't show up, the first concerns began to surface. Her employer tried to contact her on her cell phone, but the call was not answered. This was unusual because Paige usually answered the calls, especially when they were work-related. Colleagues at the hair salon became concerned around 10 a.m. Paige had been at work for over an hour, and there was no sign of life from her. Some of them tried to message her on social media but got no response. When Paige didn't show up after 11 a.m., the situation began to look serious. Her employer knew she was a responsible girl who would never be late without giving notice. He began contacting people who might know her whereabouts. The employer tried to contact Paige several times during the morning. He called her cell phone, sent text messages, even tried to find her through social media. All attempts at contact were unsuccessful. The phone didn't ring, messages weren't delivered, and social media remained inactive. The situation became so disturbing that the employer began to consider contacting Paige's family. He wasn't sure if that was his place, but his growing concerns compelled him to act. He knew something was wrong, and he felt responsible for the young girl who worked for him. It was late afternoon when his employer finally decided to contact Paige's family. Paige had been missing from work for several hours, and no one knew her whereabouts. The call to her mother, Pamela Monroe, was shocking to both parties. Pamela Monroe learned that her daughter had not shown up for work at all. This was completely unusual, and she knew immediately that something serious had happened. Paige was reliable and responsible and would never leave work without an explanation. The mother immediately began to panic and tried to contact her daughter in every way possible. Pamela called Paige's phone, sent her messages, contacted her friends and acquaintances. No one knew Paige's whereabouts. Everyone she talked to confirmed that Paige had left for work that morning and hadn't been seen or heard from since. When it became apparent that no one could find Paige, an informal search began. Her friends and family split up and began searching for places where she might be. They checked her favorite places, her friends, the places she usually hung out. A group of friends took the route Paige usually took to work. They hoped to find her somewhere along the way, maybe injured or in trouble. They walked the streets asking people if anyone had seen her, checking parks and other public places. Meanwhile, Pamela Monroe's mother contacted all of Paige's friends and relatives. She tried to find out if anyone knew about her plans for the day or if she had talked to anyone about anything unusual, but they all confirmed the same thing. Paige had left for work that morning and hadn't been heard from since. When Paige Doherty's family contacted the police on the evening of March 19, 2016, an official investigation into her disappearance began. Police Scotland immediately deployed a large amount of resources, as this was a missing 15-year-old girl. Investigators knew that the first 48 hours were critical to the successful resolution of similar cases. The first team of detectives focused on getting basic information about Paige, her habits, friends, and recent known activities. The investigation manager immediately ordered a mapping of all the places Paige had last been seen and began coordinating searches in the Clydebank and Kirkintilloch area. A police spokesman briefed the media on the disappearance and asked for the public's cooperation. A hotline has been set up for tips and information. During the first few hours of the investigation, dozens of people came forward with various sightings and information, all of which had to be checked and evaluated. Although Paige did not disappear from school, but on her way to work, the police systematically searched all places associated with her daily life. Search teams focused on the route between where she had spent the night at a friend's house and the hairdressers in Kirkintilloch. Hundreds of volunteers joined the official search. Parks, woodland areas, abandoned buildings, and any place where the young girl might be located were searched. Police dogs were used to try to pick up Paige's trail, but unfortunately without success. Special forces also searched water bodies in the area, including the River Clyde and smaller streams. Divers checked underwater areas while helicopters monitored hard-to-reach places from above. Each day of the search brought new hopes, but also new disappointments when no sign of Paige was found. The most significant part of the investigation focused on analyzing security cameras throughout the area. Detectives requested footage from all the cameras along the route Paige likely took to work. It was hundreds of hours of footage that had to be carefully reviewed. The first key discovery was the camera capture of Paige at 8:21 a.m. as she entered the delicious deli. This footage became the starting point for further investigation. Detectives immediately noted that no camera captured Paige leaving the store, which was highly suspicious. The analysis continued by mapping all the cameras around the store. Investigators looked for any signs that Paige had left the area on foot or by vehicle. They checked footage from hours after she entered the store, but found no sign of her presence. Detectives also analyzed surveillance footage of store owner John Leatham's behavior. They discovered suspicious activity shortly after Paige's arrival. Leatham was captured closing up shop, running to a neighboring store and purchasing cleaning products, gloves, and trash bags. This behavior was completely unusual and unexplained. The police technical team began analyzing data from Paige's cell phone. They monitored the cell towers for recent activity on her phone. This data provided valuable information about Paige's last location. The phone signal confirmed that Paige was indeed in the area of Fleming Avenue where the delicious deli was located. The phone's last activity was recorded around 8:30 a.m., which corresponded to a time shortly after she entered the store. Investigators also analyzed Paige's text messages, calls, and social media activity in the time before her disappearance. They did not look for any unusual contacts, threats, or signs that she planned to go anywhere. All indications were that her disappearance was sudden and unexpected. The phone data also revealed that Paige had attempted to call and send messages several times after she entered the store, but those attempts were unsuccessful. This suggested that she may have been in a situation where she needed help. Detectives began extensive questioning of all people who may have had information about Paige's final hours. They talked to her friends, family, classmates, and work colleagues. Every conversation was recorded and analyzed for possible clues. Particular attention was paid to interviewing the shop owner, John Leatham. During the first interview, he claimed that Paige had not come into his store at all and that he had not seen her that day. This claim was in direct contradiction to the surveillance footage, which clearly showed her entering the store. Investigators also spoke with neighboring store owners and residents of nearby homes. They were looking for any witnesses who might have seen anything unusual in the area around the store. Several people confirmed that they had seen Leatham buying cleaning products, which confirmed the suspicions from surveillance footage. Important testimony was provided by the owner of a neighboring store, who confirmed that Leatham had come to him to purchase cleaning products, gloves, and trash bags. He found this behavior suspicious because Leatham did not usually buy such items and appeared nervous. When suspicion centered on the delicious deli, police requested a warrant for a forensic investigation of the premises. Leatham initially refused but eventually had to consent to a police search warrant. The forensic team conducted a thorough analysis of the entire store, including the office at the rear of the building. Although the premises looked clean, the specialists used luminol and other chemicals to detect traces of blood. They discovered significant amounts of blood in several areas, particularly behind the refrigerator and in the office. DNA analysis confirmed that the blood found belonged to Paige Doherty. This finding was direct evidence that something serious had happened at the store. Forensic experts also found signs of violence on the walls and furniture, indicating that a brutal attack had occurred. The investigation also revealed that Leatham had attempted to thoroughly clean the crime scene. He used strong cleaning agents and bleach, but forensic technology was able to detect traces of blood despite these attempts to cover up the evidence. Police began discreetly monitoring John Leatham and his activities. Surveillance cameras captured his vehicle in various parts of the city in the hours after Paige's disappearance. Particularly suspicious was that his car was seen in the Great Western Road area, where there are remote woodland areas. Analysis of GPS data from his vehicle revealed that he had visited several locations off his usual route. One of these locations was in a wooded area where a body could be hidden. This information became crucial to the search. Detectives also observed Leith's behavior after Paige's disappearance. They noticed that he was acting nervous, changing his usual routine and avoiding contact with the police. His store remained closed for unusually long periods of time, which was uncharacteristic of his usual behavior. Forensic analysis of his vehicle later revealed traces of DNA and other evidence linked to Paige. Microscopic traces of blood and hair were found in the trunk of the car, which genetic analysis linked to the victim. The investigation into the Paige Doherty case required coordination between the different parts of Police Scotland. A special investigation unit was created, bringing together detectives, forensic experts, technical specialists, and other experts. Police also worked with local authorities to obtain search warrants and with the media to inform the public. A communication strategy was developed to ensure that the public was kept informed of the progress of the investigation without compromising important aspects of the case. International cooperation was not necessary in this case, but the police coordinated with other Scottish police forces and with UK security forces. All available resources were mobilized to resolve the case quickly. The investigation also included psychological profiling of the suspect and analysis of his past activities. Criminal psychology experts helped to develop a profile of the offender which helped to focus the investigation on the right direction. March 21st of the year 2016 became a turning point in the Paige Doherty case. Just 2 days after her disappearance, and while the search was still in full swing, bystanders made a tragic discovery. The body of 15-year-old Paige was found off the Great Western Road in Clydebank, Scotland. The site of the discovery was just 2 miles from the Delicious Deli where Paige was last seen alive. It was an area of dense vegetation and overgrown grass along a busy road. This location was not random. It was strategically chosen to ensure that the body would eventually be found, but also to give the perpetrator time to cover his tracks and possibly escape. The Great Western Road area is known for its wooded stretches and secluded areas that provide some privacy. The perpetrator probably chose this location because he could have discreetly dumped the body here without immediate discovery. At the same time, he knew the body would eventually be found, which may have been part of his psychological game with investigators. Passers-by who discovered the body immediately contacted the police. They were ordinary citizens who were walking through the area and noticed something unusual in the bushes. Their quick reaction and immediate reporting of the find to the police allowed a forensic investigation to begin while the crime scene was still relatively intact. When the forensic team arrived at the scene of the find, it was immediately clear that this was an extremely brutal crime. Paige's body showed extensive injuries that indicated extreme violence and rage on the part of the perpetrator. The number of wounds was shocking even to experienced forensic experts. The body showed more than 140 stab and slash wounds, primarily to the head, face, neck, and hands. Some reports and family statements later suggested that the total number of wounds may have been even higher, perhaps over 250 or even 500. These figures illustrate the incredible brutality of the attack and suggest that it was a crime of passion or madness. The distribution of the wounds on the body provided important information about the course of the attack. The wounds on her hands and forearms indicated that Paige was trying to defend herself and protect her head and face from the attack. These defensive wounds indicated that she was aware of the danger and was trying to fight for her life. Forensic analysis also revealed that the attack lasted a relatively long time. It was not a quick, impulsive act, but a prolonged attack during which the perpetrator had time to inflict such extensive injuries. This fact suggested either sadistic tendencies on the part of the perpetrator or his desire to ensure that the victim would not survive. The place where the body was found immediately became a crime scene that had to be carefully documented and examined. The forensic team cordoned off a wide area around the scene and began a systematic collection of evidence. Every detail was photographed, measured, and recorded. Specialists searched for any clues that might lead to the perpetrator. They checked the ground around the body, looking for tire tracks, shoe prints, DNA material, or any items the perpetrator might have lost or left behind. A detailed analysis of the plant matter on the body and clothing was conducted, which may have provided information about where the body was before it was dumped. Forensic photographers took hundreds of pictures from different angles to capture all aspects of the crime scene. These photographs later became key evidence in the trial. Each wound on the body was documented and analyzed to determine what instrument caused it. The team also analyzed the way the body was disposed of. The position of the body and its location indicated that the perpetrator had transferred it from the vehicle and dumped it in the bushes. There was no indication that the body had been dragged on the ground or that it had been in place for an extended period of time. A forensic pathologist conducted a preliminary examination of the body at the scene to determine the probable time of death and the underlying causes of death. The state of decomposition of the body indicated that death had occurred relatively recently, probably around the time of Paige's disappearance. Body temperature, rigidity, and other post-mortem changes provided information as to exactly when death occurred. This data was crucial to establishing a timeline of events and confirming that Paige died shortly after her disappearance, not later. The preliminary investigation also revealed that the primary cause of death was massive bleeding caused by multiple stab wounds, particularly those to the neck and head. Some of the wounds affected vital blood vessels and organs, leading to rapid blood loss and death. The forensic expert also analyzed blood patterns on clothing and the body, which provided information on the position of the victim and the perpetrator during the attack. These analyses helped to reconstruct the course of the violent act and confirmed that the attack took place in an enclosed area, probably in a building. Formal identification of the body was carried out using several methods. First, visual identification by family members was used, which was an extremely traumatic experience for the relatives. Paige's mother, Pamela Monroe, had to go through the painful process of confirming that the body found belonged to her daughter. In addition to visual identification, scientific methods were used. DNA analysis confirmed the identity with a high degree of accuracy. DNA samples from the body were compared to reference samples from the family, providing 100% confirmation of identity. Dental records also served as another method of identification. Paige's dentist provided complete dental records, which were compared to the condition of the teeth on the recovered body. This method confirmed the identification and provided further scientific proof of the victim's identity. Personal items found with the body, including clothing and jewelry, also helped with identification. The family confirmed that these were items that Paige was wearing on the day of her disappearance. These items later became important evidence in the trial. Every injury on Paige's body was carefully documented and analyzed. A forensic pathologist created a detailed report of all the wounds, their depth, direction, and the likely instrument used to inflict them. This documentation became key evidence in the later trial. Analysis of the wounds revealed that they were inflicted with a sharp instrument, probably a knife with certain characteristics. The forensic expert was able to determine the minimum length of the blade and its shape based on the characteristics of the wounds. This information helped investigators in their search for the murder weapon. The wound patterns also indicated that the attack took place in multiple phases. Some of the wounds were inflicted while the victim was standing, others while he was lying on the ground. This analysis helped reconstruct the exact course of the attack and showed that Paige was trying to escape and defend herself. The photographic documentation of each wound was done with scientific precision. These images, although traumatic, provided indisputable evidence of the brutality of the crime and became a powerful tool in the courtroom. Once the forensic investigation at the scene was completed, the body was carefully transferred to the morgue for a detailed autopsy. This process was carried out with the utmost care to preserve all the evidence and to avoid contamination of the samples. Strict protocols for handling evidence were followed during transport. The body was wrapped in special packaging to prevent the loss of any traces of DNA or other forensic evidence. Every step was documented and recorded. Preparation for the autopsy included additional photography and documentation in the controlled environment of the morgue. This environment allowed for a more detailed analysis than could be done at an open-air discovery site. The forensic team also prepared samples for toxicology testing to determine if any substances were present in the body that could have influenced the course of events. Although no drugs or poisons were found, this analysis was important to the completeness of the investigation. John Leatham was a 32-year-old man who owned the Delicious Deli on Fleming Avenue in Clydebank. At first glance, he was an ordinary businessman who operated his business in the local community. Letham was known amongst his neighbors as the owner of a small shop that offered general groceries and snacks to local residents. Surprisingly, Letham had no prior criminal history. There are no records of his having been previously convicted of any crimes. This fact made his brutal act even more shocking to the local community, who knew him as a seemingly normal businessman. There were no warning signs or previous incidents to indicate his capacity for such brutal violence. His shop had been operating in the area for some time and had regular customers. Letham appeared to be integrated into the local community, and his behavior prior to the crime did not raise any suspicions. This fact complicated the investigation, as investigators were looking for offenders with a criminal history or signs of antisocial behavior. Leith's personal life was relatively low-key. He was unmarried, lived alone, and devoted himself primarily to his business. He had no children or known alcohol or drug problems. His financial situation appeared to be stable, although the business did not make extraordinary profits. The path to identifying John Letham as the prime suspect began with an analysis of surveillance footage. As I mentioned earlier, security cameras caught Paige entering the delicious deli at 21 minutes after 8 o'clock in the morning, but never recorded her leaving. This discrepancy immediately caught the attention of investigators. Detectives focused on all cameras in the vicinity of the store and began analyzing John Letham's behavior in the hours following Paige's arrival. They discovered suspicious activity that was inconsistent with his normal behavior. Surveillance footage captured Letham closing his store unusually early and rushing to a neighboring store. The most suspicious footage was from 11 a.m., when Letham was shopping for cleaning products, rubber gloves, and black garbage bags at a neighboring store. This purchasing behavior was completely unusual for the store owner, who would normally order such items through his suppliers or already had them in stock. The cameras also caught Leith's vehicle at unusual times and places where it would not normally be seen. His car was seen in the area of Great Western Road where Paige's body was later found. These recordings provided a clear timeline of his movements and linked him to the location where the body was dumped. Investigators carefully reconstructed the timeline of events and discovered significant matches between Leith's activities and key moments in the case. Paige entered the store at 21 minutes after 8:02 a.m., and her cell phone recorded her last activity around 8:30 a.m. Letham closed his store unusually early, which was captured on surveillance cameras around 9 a.m. This behavior was unusual as he usually kept his shop open all day. The store closing coincided with the time Paige's phone stopped transmitting a signal. Between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., Leith was caught on surveillance cameras shopping for cleaning products. This time corresponded with the period when he was likely cleaning the crime scene and preparing to remove evidence. The purchase of specific cleaning products and gloves indicated a premeditated plan to cover his tracks. On the afternoon of that day, Leith's vehicle was intercepted in the area of Great Western Road, where Paige's body was later found. The timestamp on the surveillance cameras matched the time he presumably dumped the body at the scene. This coincidence of times provided investigators with strong evidence of his involvement in the crime. Forensic analysis provided the most compelling evidence against John Leith. DNA samples found in his shop matched Paige's genetic profile. Blood found in the office behind the store was positively identified as belonging to Paige Doherty. Additionally, DNA analysis of Leith's vehicle revealed traces of Paige's presence in the trunk of the car. Microscopic samples of blood, hair, and skin cells were found in the back of the vehicle, indicating that a body had been transported there. This evidence was so compelling that it virtually eliminated the possibility of contamination or coincidence. Forensic experts also analyzed Leith's clothing and personal effects. Traces of Paige's DNA were found on his clothing, confirming that there had been physical contact between them. This evidence was particularly important because Letham denied ever seeing Paige. The DNA evidence also helped rule out other possible suspects. Genetic profiles found at the crime scene matched only Paige and Leith, confirming that the crime occurred between the two individuals without the involvement of a third party. Several eyewitnesses provided key information that helped identify Letham as the perpetrator. The owner of a neighboring store was the first important witness to confirm Leith's unusual shopping behavior. He described how Letham came in to buy cleaning products and appeared nervous and hasty. This witness also confirmed that Letham did not usually buy such things and that his behavior was markedly different from normal. He described how Letham was in a hurry, avoided eye contact, and seemed stressed. This testimony provided important context for the surveillance footage. Other witnesses in the area confirmed that they had seen Letham's vehicle at unusual times and places where it would not normally be seen. Some residents noticed that his car passed through their neighborhoods in the afternoon, which was not common. A witness who lived near where the body was found recalled seeing a suspicious vehicle in the area around the time the body was believed to have been dumped. Although he did not remember the exact details, his description of the vehicle matched Leith's car. Leith's behavior after the crime provided additional evidence of his guilt. Immediately after the crime, he attempted to systematically remove all traces and evidence. He closed his store and began a thorough cleaning of the premises, particularly the office where the attack took place. His purchase of cleaning products was not random but carefully planned. He bought strong bleach, disinfectants, and rubber gloves, which he used to remove traces of blood and DNA. This activity indicated that he was aware of the seriousness of his crime and was trying to avoid capture. Letham also changed his usual routine and behavior. He kept the store closed for unusually long periods of time and avoided contact with neighbors and acquaintances. When people asked him about the reason for closing the store, he gave evasive answers or lied about technical problems. His psychological state after the crime was manifested by nervousness, insomnia, and changes in behavior. Neighbors noticed that he appeared tired and stressed, which was unusual for his usually calm nature. These behavioral changes provided investigators with additional clues about his involvement in the crime. Forensic analysis of Leith's vehicle provided extensive evidence of his role in transporting Paige's body. GPS data from his car revealed the exact routes he drove on the day of the crime, including a visit to the location where the body was found. This data provided incontrovertible evidence of his presence at the body's disposal site. Analysis of the trunk of the vehicle revealed microscopic traces of blood, hair, and textile fibers that were consistent with Paige's clothing and biological material. These traces were found despite Leith's attempts to clean the vehicle after the crime. Forensic experts also analyzed soil samples and plant material from the vehicle's tires and undercarriage. These samples matched the soil from the area where the body was found, confirming that the vehicle was present at that location. Engineering analysis also revealed that Letham had attempted to clean his vehicle using strong chemicals. Traces of these cleaning agents were found in the trunk and provided further evidence of his efforts to cover up the traces of the crime. The main trial against John Leith began on the 5th day of September in the year 2016 at the High Court in Glasgow. This court was chosen because of the seriousness of the charges and the media interest in the case. The courtroom was fully occupied by members of the media, relatives of the victim, and members of the public who have followed this shocking case. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense and emotional. Paige's mother, Pamela Monroe, and other family members were present to watch justice be served on the man who killed their beloved daughter and sister. Their presence added a human dimension to the entire trial and reminded all present of the true impact of this brutal crime. Judge Lady Ray presided over the trial with the dignity and professionalism that was necessary in such an emotionally charged case. Her experience in similar cases was crucial in maintaining order and ensuring a fair trial for all parties involved. The prosecution was represented by experienced prosecutors who were tasked with presenting the evidence against Leith and demanding a just punishment for this brutal crime. The defense was also represented by qualified attorneys who were tasked with ensuring that Leith's rights were respected during the trial. Surprisingly, John Leitham decided to plead guilty to both the charge of murdering Paige Doherty and the charge of obstruction of justice. This decision came relatively early in the trial and meant that the main trial did not have to drag on for weeks or months. Letham admitted that he murdered Paige in his shop on March 19, 2016. Specifically, he admitted that he inflicted more than 250 stab and slash wounds to her head and neck. This confession was shocking in its brutality and confirmed the worst fears of all who followed the case. In addition to murder, Letham also pleaded guilty to a charge of obstruction of justice. He admitted that after the crime, he removed Paige's body from his shop, transported it to the Great Western Road area, and dumped it there. He also admitted that he attempted to destroy evidence by cleaning his vehicle and shop. This guilty plea spared Paige Doherty's family a painful trial, during which they would have had to hear a detailed account of how their daughter died. But it also meant they never learned the exact motives for this brutal act. Even though Letham pleaded guilty, the prosecution still had to present key evidence to justify the required sentence. The most important evidence was the surveillance footage that captured Paige entering the store and Letham's subsequent suspicious activities. Forensic evidence played a key role in proving the extent of the brutality of the crime. Pathologists described in detail each of the more than 250 wounds that Paige sustained. These descriptions were so shocking that some in the courtroom were visibly shaken. The DNA evidence provided scientific confirmation of Leith's guilt. Forensic experts explained how Paige's DNA was found in the store, in Leith's vehicle, and on his clothing. This evidence was so compelling that it virtually eliminated the possibility of innocence. Technical evidence from Leith's vehicle, including GPS data and forensic footprints, showed that he transported Paige's body to the location where it was found. This evidence provided a complete picture of how he attempted to cover up his crime. The forensic pathologist provided a detailed account of the cause of Paige's death and the extent of her injuries. He described how each wound was inflicted and what instrument was likely used. This testimony was crucial to understanding the brutality of the attack. The surveillance expert analyzed all available footage and created a timeline of Leith's activities on the day of the crime. This analysis showed that Letham lied about his activities and that his behavior was consistent with the commission of the crime. The DNA expert explained how the samples were collected and analyzed. He described the likelihood of accidental contamination and explained why the samples found were so compelling. This testimony provided the scientific basis for the prosecution. The psychologist provided an analysis of Leith's behavior after the crime and explained how his activities were consistent with the typical behavior of an offender trying to cover his tracks. This analysis helped explain the motivation behind some of his actions. Paige's mother, Pamela Monroe, provided an emotional account of the impact of the crime on her family. She described what Paige was like as a daughter, a student, and a young woman with big dreams and ambitions. This testimony provided a human dimension to the case and reminded all in attendance that behind the statistics and evidence, there is real human life. Pamela described how devastating it was to discover that her daughter was dead and how the brutality of the crime devastated her even more. She spoke of sleepless nights, fear for the safety of her other children, and how the whole family struggled to cope with the tragedy. Other family members also gave accounts of how Paige's death affected their lives. They described her personality, her plans for the future, and how much they all miss her. These testimonies were so emotional that not a sound could be heard in the courtroom. The family also spoke about the impact of the media attention on their privacy and how they tried to preserve the dignity of Paige's memory despite the intense public scrutiny. Leith's defense focused on commuting the sentence rather than denying guilt. Defense attorneys argued that this was a spontaneous act, not a premeditated crime. They argued that Letham did not intend to kill Paige when she entered his shop. The defense also emphasized that Letham had no criminal history and that he was considered a respected member of the community until this crime. His systematic cleaning of the crime scene, purchase of cleaning products, and attempts to cover his tracks showed a cold-blooded mindset and an attempt to evade justice. This behavior was not a spontaneous reaction, but a premeditated plan to cover up the crime. The psychological impact on the victim's family was also taken into account in determining the sentence. The judge recognized that the family would have to live with this tragedy for the rest of their lives, and that the sentence should reflect their suffering and loss. When the sentence was handed down, the reaction of Paige Doherty's family was mixed. On the one hand, they felt some satisfaction that justice had been served and that Letham would be punished for his actions. They knew that no punishment could bring back their beloved Paige, but they hoped that this verdict would at least provide some meaning to their suffering. Pamela Monroe, Paige's mother, gave an emotional statement outside the courtroom. She expressed her satisfaction that Leith would be punished, but stressed that no punishment could make up for the loss of her daughter. She described how the whole family has to live with this tragedy every day and how they are trying to find a way to move on with their lives. The family also expressed gratitude to the police and prosecutors for their work on the case. They acknowledged that without their efforts, justice may not have been served. However, they also emphasized that for them personally, the grieving and healing process will continue long after the trial is over. Some family members expressed the view that the punishment could have been even harsher given the brutality of the crime. They felt that 27 years may not be enough for such a brutal crime, but they also recognized that the judicial system has its limitations. The verdict in the Paige Doherty case set an important precedent in the Scottish justice system. The sentence of 27 years for the murder of a young person was considered significant and sent a clear signal about how the justice system approaches brutal crimes against young people. Legal experts analyzed the sentence and considered it adequate given the circumstances of the crime. They stressed that the combination of the brutality of the crime, the age of the victim, and the attempts to cover up the tracks justified such a high sentence. This sentence became a reference point for similar cases in the future. The judgment also emphasized the importance of forensic evidence and modern investigative techniques. The way in which DNA evidence, CCTV footage, and other technical evidence was collected and presented has become a model for future cases. The judicial system also appreciated the speed with which the case was solved. Less than 8 months elapsed between the commission of the crime and sentencing, which was considered efficient by all involved. The verdict was generally well received by the public. People felt that justice had been done and that the punishment was appropriate to the seriousness of the crime. The media commented on the sentence as adequate and stressed that it sent a clear message that brutal violence would not be tolerated. The public also praised the way in which Judge Lady Ray conducted the trial. Her professionalism and sensitivity to the victim's family were widely praised. People felt that the trial was conducted fairly and with respect for all parties involved. The verdict also sparked discussion about the safety of young people and how to protect children from similar crimes. Many people expressed concern for the safety of their own children and called for better protective measures. Some members of the public expressed the view that the sentence could be even harsher, but most acknowledged that 27 years was a significant sentence that reflected the seriousness of the crime. From a legal perspective, the judgment was significant for several reasons. The sentence of 27 years was at the upper end of the normal sentences for murder in Scotland, reflecting the exceptional circumstances of the case. Legal experts analyzed the factors that led to such a high sentence. The combination of the brutality of the crime, the age of the victim, and the attempts to cover the tracks were considered to be aggravating factors that justified the high sentence. The judge also took into account the absence of mitigating circumstances, which contributed to the harsh sentence. The sentence set an important precedent for future cases of a similar nature. Lawyers began to refer to this case when arguing for harsh sentences in similar situations. The judgment also highlighted the importance of the age of the victim as a factor in determining punishment. The legal system also appreciated the way in which the case was prepared and presented. The quality of the forensic evidence and its presentation in court became a model for future cases. Although Letham had the right to appeal his conviction, his options were limited given his guilty plea. The appeal could only address the amount of the sentence, not the murder conviction itself. Legal experts speculated on whether an appeal could be successful. Given the brutality of the crime and the judge's thorough justification of the sentence, it seemed that the chances of a successful appeal were minimal. The verdict also set clear conditions for future re-evaluation of the sentence. Letham will have to spend a minimum of 27 years in prison before he can apply for parole. Even then, he will have to prove that he is no longer a danger to society. The parole system will have to carefully consider all aspects of the case, including the brutality of the offense, behavior in prison, and the risk of reoffending, before making any decision on release. The murder of Paige Doherty has shaken the whole of Scotland in a way that few crimes can. The brutality of the crime, the age of the victim, and the fact that the crime took place in an ordinary shop on a weekday caused a wave of shock to ripple through Scottish society. People felt vulnerable and insecure as they realized that such violence could happen anywhere and at any time. The local community in Clydebank was particularly affected because it involved their neighbor, a daughter whom many knew personally. Paige was a popular young girl who worked in a local hairdressing salon and was known for her sweet nature. Her brutal death caused the community to feel that their safe world had collapsed. The national media covered the case extensively, which brought additional pressure on the local community. Journalists and camera crews flooded Clydebank, causing further trauma for local residents. Many felt as though their privacy had been invaded at a time when they were struggling to come to terms with the tragedy. The Scottish public expressed their shock and sadness on social media and in the media. Thousands of people shared condolences and expressed support for Paige's family. This case has become a symbol of the vulnerability of young people and the brutality that can affect any family. Educational institutions across Scotland have responded to the tragedy by introducing new security measures. Schools have begun to review their protocols for student safety, particularly in relation to their movement off campus and contact with strangers. Many schools implemented new personal safety education programs that taught students how to recognize and avoid dangerous situations. These programs focused on practical skills, such as recognizing suspicious behavior, the importance of informing parents of their plans, and using safety apps on mobile phones. Schools also increased their collaboration with local police and set up regular visits by police officers to educate students about safety. These visits have become a regular part of school programs and have helped build trust between young people and the police. School leaders also began to communicate more with parents about safety measures and created new channels for quickly reporting any safety threats. New systems were introduced to monitor student attendance and quickly report absences. Local authorities and traders responded to the tragedy by improving security measures in public areas. Many shops have invested in more modern CCTV systems and improved lighting around their stores. These investments were aimed at creating a safer environment for customers, especially young people. The local authorities launched a review of public lighting across the area and identified areas that needed improvement. New streetlights and CCTV were installed in key locations where young people frequented. These measures aimed to increase the sense of safety in the community. Public transport also introduced new safety measures, including increased security cameras and better communication between drivers and the control room. Public transport stops were better illuminated and equipped with panic buttons. Parks and recreation areas were also subject to safety improvements. New camera systems were installed, lighting was improved, and the frequency of police patrols was increased. These changes were designed to ensure that young people felt safe using public spaces. The Scottish media played a key role in informing the public about the case and its implications. Newspapers, television, and radio stations provided detailed coverage of the investigation, the trial, and its impact on the community. This coverage helped to keep the public informed and engaged. The media also initiated discussions about youth safety and how society can better protect its most vulnerable members. Panel discussions were organized with security experts, psychologists, and police officials to discuss preventive measures. Investigative journalists focused on the systemic problems that may have contributed to the tragedy. They examined whether there were warning signs that could have been recognized earlier and analyzed the effectiveness of current security measures. The media also provided a platform for Paige's family to share their story and appeal to the public. These conversations helped to humanize the tragedy and remind people of the real impact of violent crimes on victims' families. In response to the tragedy, the local community came together and organized various charity events to support Paige's family and to fund safety measures. Funds were set up to help cover funeral costs and provide financial support to the family during their time of grieving. Local businesses and organizations contributed to these funds and organized fundraising events. The hair salon where Paige worked became a hub of community support, where people brought flowers, condolences, and financial contributions. Schools organized special events in Paige's memory and to support her family. Students and teachers participated in various projects to honor her memory while supporting safety initiatives in the community. Sports clubs and community organizations also contributed to support the family and to fund safety programs. These events helped the community cope with the tragedy while working to prevent similar crimes. Paige's tragic death catalyzed the creation of several campaigns focused on child and juvenile safety. These campaigns focused on educating parents, children, and the community about risks and preventative measures. One major campaign focused on the importance of parent-child communication about safety. The campaign emphasized the need for open conversations about dangerous situations and how to recognize and avoid them. Educational materials were developed for families and workshops were organized. Another campaign focused on technological solutions for safety, including location tracking apps and emergency communication systems. These tools were designed to help parents stay in touch with their children and respond quickly in the event of danger. The campaigns also emphasized the importance of community vigilance and peer support. Neighbors were encouraged to take note of suspicious behavior and report it to the appropriate authorities. Community support networks were established to help monitor neighborhood safety. The tragedy also prompted discussions about how to better identify and work with individuals who might pose a risk to the public. Although Latham had no criminal history, experts began to explore ways to recognize warning signs of potentially dangerous behavior. New training programs were created for merchants and public service employees to teach them to recognize suspicious behavior and know how to respond. These programs focused on practical skills and provided clear guidance for different situations. Psychologists and social workers began to develop new approaches to identifying at-risk individuals in the community. These approaches included better communication between different services and the creation of systems for sharing information about potential threats. New support programs were also created for people who were struggling with mental health issues or aggressive tendencies. These programs aimed to provide help before escalation into violent behavior. Paige's death has left a lasting mark in the local community and across Scotland. People became more vigilant and aware of safety risks. Parents began to communicate more with their children about safety and checked their activities more frequently. Local businesses invested in long-term safety improvements that became a standard part of their operations. These investments included not only technical equipment but also employee safety training. Community organizations became more proactive in safety and established ongoing programs to monitor and improve safety conditions. These organizations have become an important part of the local security infrastructure. Changes have also affected the way the community approaches young people and their needs. New support programs for young people have been created and communication between the different services that work with them has improved. The tragedy of Paige Doherty has taught us how critically important it is for schools and parents to respond quickly when a child is not behaving in the usual way. In Paige's case, it became clear that her absence from work was the first warning sign that should be taken seriously immediately. Schools and parents must learn to recognize when unusual behavior is cause for immediate concern. Educational institutions now stress the importance of regular communication between school and parents about student attendance and behavior. When a student is not reporting or behaving in the usual manner, it is essential to contact the family within a few hours, not at the end of the day. This early warning system can save lives. Parents learn that they must take even seemingly small changes in their children's behavior seriously. If a child doesn't answer at the expected time, doesn't show up where he or she is supposed to be, or behaves unusually, it is important to act immediately. Waiting several hours may be too late. School systems are now implementing new protocols for reporting absences that require immediate contact with parents if a student is absent without prior excuse. These systems use automated messages, phone calls, and emails to ensure prompt communication. Community organizations have also created support networks where neighbors and friends inform each other of unusual behavior or disappearances of young people. These informal networks can provide an additional layer of protection and early warning. The Paige Doherty case dramatically demonstrated the critical role CCTV plays in crime investigations. Without the security camera footage that captured Paige entering the store, the investigation could have taken much longer or even ended in failure. This experience led to a massive expansion of CCTV systems across Scotland. Retailers have learned that investing in good quality security cameras is not just a matter of protecting property, but can be crucial to justice in the event of a crime. Modern CCTV systems with high resolution and the ability to record audio have become standard for many businesses. Local authorities have expanded public camera networks, particularly in areas where young people frequent. These cameras are strategically placed at bus stops, in parks, on main streets, and around schools. Their presence serves both as a deterrent and as a source of evidence. Facial recognition and automatic surveillance technology is becoming part of more advanced systems. These systems can alert to suspicious behavior or help to quickly identify people missing or wanted by the police. Households are also investing in security cameras, especially those with children. These systems provide parents with a sense of security and can provide valuable information in the event of an incident. Modern systems allow for remote monitoring via mobile apps. Paige's case highlighted the critical importance of effective communication between police and the public. Quickly sharing information about missing persons and suspicious activity can be critical to the successful resolution of a case. Police have learned to use modern communications technology to reach the general public quickly. Social media has become a key tool for disseminating information about missing persons. Police now actively use platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to quickly disseminate photos, descriptions, and requests for help. These posts can reach thousands of people within minutes. Special mobile phone apps have been created that allow the public to quickly report suspicious activity or provide information about missing persons. These apps often include features such as photography, GPS location, and direct connection to police services. Local communities have created rapid alert networks where important safety information is shared through text messages, emails, and community apps. These networks can quickly mobilize hundreds of volunteers for search operations. Police have also improved their communication strategies with the media to ensure that the public receives accurate and up-to-date information. Regular press conferences and briefings help keep the public informed and engaged. Educational programs for children expanded significantly after the Paige tragedy, focusing on practical skills for recognizing and avoiding dangerous situations. Children learn to trust their instincts and recognize warning signs in adult behavior. Programs teach children to notice unusual adult behavior, such as excessive friendliness from strangers, attempts to isolate themselves from others, or offers that seem too good to be true. Children learn that it is okay to say no to adults and walk away from uncomfortable situations. The importance of communicating with trusted adults about any unusual experiences or encounters is emphasized. Children are taught that they will never be punished for communicating their concerns, even if they turn out to be unfounded. Practical exercises include what-if scenarios where children practice how to react in a variety of potentially dangerous situations. These exercises help them prepare for real situations and increase their confidence in dealing with problems. The programs also stress the importance of traveling in groups, avoiding remote locations, and informing parents of their plans. Children learn to use technology such as location tracking apps and emergency contacts. Parents learn how to communicate effectively with their children about safety without scaring them or limiting their independence. The key is to create open communication where children feel comfortable sharing their experiences and concerns. Parents are encouraged to regularly discuss their children's plans, friends, and activities with their children. This communication should not be an interrogation, but a natural part of family conversations. It is important to create an environment where children feel safe sharing information. Modern technology provides parents with new tools to monitor their children's safety. Location tracking apps, emergency contacts, and rapid alert systems can help parents stay in touch with their children and respond quickly when problems arise. Parents are learning to recognize changes in their children's behavior that could indicate a problem. These changes may include withdrawal, changes in sleeping or eating patterns, unusual emotional reactions, or avoidance of normal activities. Emphasis is placed on creating family safety plans that include emergency contacts, safe routes, and procedures for different situations. These plans should be regularly updated and practiced with the entire family. Educational programs now teach both children and adults to recognize warning signs and behavior that could indicate potential danger. These signals may be subtle, but early recognition can prevent tragedy. Suspicious behaviors may include excessive interest in children from unfamiliar adults, attempts to isolate a child from others, offers of gifts or benefits for no apparent reason, or unusual questions about family routines and plans. Programs also teach to recognize changes in the behavior of familiar adults that could signal a problem. These changes may include increased aggression, withdrawal, unusual interests, or behavior that seems out of character. Communities learn the importance of reporting suspicious behavior to the appropriate authorities. People are encouraged to trust their instincts and report situations that seem unusual, even if they are unsure of their severity. Children's service workers, including teachers, coaches, and community workers, receive special training to recognize warning signs and know how to respond to them. This training includes legal responsibilities and procedures for reporting suspicions. Modern technology offers new opportunities to enhance the safety of children and adolescents. Location tracking apps allow parents to know where their children are and can provide valuable information in an emergency. Emergency apps make it possible to quickly contact help at the touch of a button. These apps can automatically send location and contact predetermined contacts or emergency services directly. Some apps also allow discreet activation that will not arouse the suspicions of a potential attacker. Smartwatches and other wearable devices provide an additional layer of security. These devices can monitor vital signs, track location, and enable rapid communication in the event of an emergency. Some devices also have features such as fall detection or unusual activity. Social media and communication platforms are implementing new safety features to help protect young users. These features include better privacy controls, inappropriate content filtering, and tools for reporting suspicious behavior. Artificial intelligence is used to analyze behavior patterns and identify potential threats. These systems can alert on unusual activity or suspicious contacts, allowing for faster response to potential threats. The Paige Doherty case represents one of the most tragic crimes to ever rock Scotland. When I look back at all aspects of this case, I see a series of events that have changed the lives of not only her family, but the whole of society forever. Paige was an ordinary 15-year-old girl who had a life full of possibilities and dreams ahead of her, but that life was brutally taken from her in a matter of minutes in a shop where she went to buy a simple bun. The key moments in this case were the speed with which the situation unfolded and the brutality of the act itself. Paige entered the delicious deli as a healthy and happy young woman, but never left. The more than 250 wounds John Leatham inflicted on her attest to a level of violence that shocked even seasoned forensic experts. The role of modern technology in the investigation was also an important aspect of the case. CCTV footage, GPS data, and forensic DNA analysis became key tools that enabled the rapid apprehension of the perpetrator. Without these technologies, the investigation could have taken much longer or even ended in failure. The speed of the trial and Leith's decision to plead guilty spared the family a long and painful trial. Although no punishment could bring Paige back to life, a life sentence with a minimum of 27 years provided at least some satisfaction of justice. As the creator of this content, I feel a strong responsibility to emphasize that similar tragedies can be prevented if we as a society are vigilant and proactive. Paige's death must not be in vain. It must teach us how to better protect our children and teens from similar threats. Prevention begins with education. Parents, teachers, and community leaders must work together to create an environment where children are informed about potential dangers but are not paralyzed by fear. We must strike a balance between the protection and freedom that young people need for healthy development. Technology offers us new tools for protection, but we must not forget the importance of human relationships and communication. The best protection is open communication between parents and children, where young people feel safe to share their fears and experiences. Communities must create networks of support and vigilance where neighbors look out for each other and notice unusual activities. This community accountability can be key to early recognition and prevention of potential threats. Educational institutions and employers need to implement robust safety protocols to ensure a rapid response to the absence or unusual behavior of young people. Every minute can be critical in critical situations. For those facing the effects of violence or in need of support, there are a number of organizations that provide help and support. These organizations offer services ranging from helplines to face-to-face counseling and legal aid. Victim Support Scotland is one of the main organizations that provides free support to victims of crime and their families. This organization offers practical help, emotional support, and information about victims' rights. Their services are available to anyone who has been affected by crime, regardless of whether the crime has been reported to the police. Samaritans provides a 24-hour-a-day free telephone helpline for people in crisis. This organization is available to anyone who needs someone to listen to them regardless of the nature of the problem. Their volunteers are trained to provide support to people in difficult life situations. SAMH, Scottish Association for Mental Health, specializes in supporting people with mental health problems. This organization provides information, support, and advocacy for people with mental health problems. It also offers specialist services for those who have been affected by traumatic events. Women's Aid Scotland provides support for women and children who have experienced domestic violence. Although Paige's case did not involve domestic violence, this organization offers valuable resources and support for victims of various forms of violence. Families of victims of violent crime face unique challenges and need specialized support. There are several organizations that specifically focus on helping these families cope with trauma and navigate the complex legal system. Victim support. Scotland offers specialist services for families of victims of homicide and serious violent crime. This support includes help with practical matters such as communication with the police and courts, as well as emotional support during the long process of investigation and court proceedings. Cruse Bereavement Care Scotland provides support to people who are grieving the loss of a loved one. For families of victims of violent crime, they offer a specialist service that takes into account the traumatic nature of their loss. Their counselors are trained to work with people facing complex grief. SAMCH offers specialized services for those who have been affected by traumatic events. Their programs include individual counseling, group therapy, and practical support for families coping with the aftermath of violent crimes. Support After Murder and Manslaughter, SAM, is a specialist organization that provides support to families and friends of murder victims. Although it is an English organization, it provides support across the UK and offers valuable resources and advice. The community plays a key role in the healing process after a tragedy such as Paige's death. Local communities can provide practical support, emotional comfort, and long-term help to the families of victims. This support can take many forms, from organizing fundraising events to the simple gesture of bringing food or offering to help with daily tasks. Neighbors and friends can play an important role in creating a network of support around affected families. This informal support is often just as important as professional services, because it provides a sense of belonging and continuity at a time when the world seems chaotic and unpredictable. Community organizations such as churches, sports clubs, and local groups can organize events in memory of the victims while raising funds to support their families. These events serve the dual purpose of honoring the memory of the victim and providing practical help to those in need. Schools and educational institutions can play an important role in helping young people cope with the trauma and fear that such tragedies cause. Providing counseling and support to students is crucial to their long-term mental health. Honoring the memory of victims of violent crimes is an important part of the community healing process. Paige Doherty deserves to be remembered not just as a victim of a brutal crime, but as a young woman with her own dreams, ambitions, and personality. Her life had value beyond the tragic circumstances of her death. Memorials can provide a place where family, friends, and the community can come together to remember the victim. These spaces serve as a reminder of the life that was lost and as a symbol of the community's determination to prevent similar tragedies. Educational programs and initiatives named after victims can ensure that their memory lives on while helping to prevent future crimes. These programs can educate young people about safety and provide them with the tools to protect themselves and others. Annual memorial events can help keep the memory of victims alive and remind the community of the importance of vigilance and mutual support. These events also provide an opportunity for victims' families to share their stories and continue to work on prevention. As I close this video on the tragic case of Paige Doherty, I want to emphasize that her death must not be in vain. We must learn from this tragedy and use this knowledge to protect other young lives. Each of us has a role to play in making the world a safer place for our children. Paige was more than just a statistic or a story in the media. She was a real young woman with a family who loved her, friends who remember her, and dreams that will never come true. Her tragic fate must motivate us to be vigilant, caring, and proactive in protecting the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you for watching this video and for your attention to this important topic. If you have been affected by this case in any way or if you need support, please do not hesitate to contact any of the organizations I have mentioned. Remember, you are not alone and help is available. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this and share this video if you think it might help raise awareness of this important issue.